Welcome to another episode of Everyday Photography. My name's Chris, and today we're going to be talking about macro photography. And what I'm going to talk to you about is some tools that you can use to enhance your photography and make it to where you can get closer to your subject without having to spend an enormous amount of money on the high-end lenses. So you don't have to use a macro lens in order to be able to do macro photography. There's some tools out there that you can use that are going to actually be able to allow you to get closer to your subject at a pretty inexpensive cost. So there's two things I'm going to talk to you about today. One, I'm going to talk to you about a reversal ring, and then the other I'm going to talk to you about is extension tubes. So first off, the camera that I'm going to use today is a Nikon D500. It's a crop sensor camera, and the lens I'm going to be using is actually not a macro lens. It's a 50mm f1.4 lens. So normally that lens only allows you to be about a foot away from your subject, and therefore you're not going to be able to get real close in, and it's not going to be life size. So with macro photography, you want it to be life size or greater if you can. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be first taking a picture that you'll see here, which is going to be at just about the closest focusing distance the 50mm lens can do. Now the subject here is an ant, so it was a really small ant that was on a flower, and I took the picture just to give you scale and depth. Now these pictures aren't going to be the greatest pictures in the world. They're really just to show you how these different tools work. So obviously you can see it's still really small in the picture with the ant. Now, if we take and we add on a reversal ring, what a reversal ring does is it screws onto the filter screws at the end of your lens, allows you to turn the lens backwards, and then attach to the camera, focusing the end of the lens is actually focusing inward. Now, what that does is allows you to get a lot closer to your subject. So the reversal ring is usually inexpensive. It's $15 or $20. You can get the Nikon BR2 is the one that I'm using here. It's just an older metal lens. Now, a couple things you need to keep in mind when you use this lens, this reversal ring. You have to do everything in manual. So you're going to be setting your aperture manual with the aperture ring that's on your actual lens itself. So you don't want to use any of the DX lenses or any of the newer lenses. You want to use the older AFD lenses or even some of the older AIS lenses. And what you're going to do is you set your aperture. Then you're going to be able to set your ISO on your camera for whatever amount of light you want in, probably a little bit higher than the lowest, just because you're going to want some extra lighting, because with macro photography, you need to shoot at a higher aperture. And then based on the aperture and the ISO you select, it's going to automatically pick your shutter speed for you. So it still will be able to do that on the camera. And if you need to adjust it from there, what I would do is I would use the exposure compensation button, make it go plus or minus based on your preference. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that your autofocus isn't going to work because obviously your lens is on backwards. So you're going to have to manually focus it. So it's going to feel a little clunky and weird at first when you're focusing the back of the lens. But what you'll do is you'll be able to focus in. So now I focus it all the way in as far as it can go, and then I adjust the camera and move inward and outward to get that perfect spot. Because when you use a reversal ring, there's not a whole lot of room for error because it's a small area to work with. Now, what you might want to do is you might want to use a rail. So I have a rail that I use that allows me to go in and out pretty precisely, so small adjustments. But for these pictures, I just handheld it. So obviously, this is the picture here now that I'm showing that's got the reversal ring on it. So as you can see, it got a lot closer to subject, and we're talking, 3 times life size for the ant. So it's a lot bigger. And you'll see that there's a lot that's blurred out. Now, this one was shot at like an f8. It's something that's another thing is it doesn't keep all the data in the picture as well, because obviously it doesn't know what you're putting on the back end of the lens. But as a whole, this is just giving you an idea of how much closer it's going to be able to get. Now, the second way to do it is with extension tubes. So extension tubes, the ones I'm using are Kenko. So it's just Kenko, and what it is it's going to have Usually they come in a set of 3 tubes. I bought one and it was missing the smallest one, so it only came with a 20 millimeter and a 36 millimeter extension tube, but that's sufficient for what we're going to be doing. And what I'm going to show you now, this is with a 20 millimeter extension tube. And so this picture is going to show you an up close of an ant. So it's not as close in as the reversal ring gets with a 20 millimeter, but it's going to be pretty sharp, easy to hand hold, easy to be able to get a lot of the subject in focus. So I actually like using the 20 millimeter extension tube a lot. Now, you can also do the 36 millimeter by itself as well. I did not do that for these pictures. What I did is I actually stacked it so you could see the full amount of, kind of the closest and shortest with using the extension tubes. So now I'm going to put on the screen, this is with the 2 of them stacked, the 20 and the 36 millimeter stacked. Now you could actually stack the 3rd lens that normally comes on with this as well, the 3rd extension tube. I wouldn't necessarily suggest it because you're rarely going to need to be in that close, but once in a while you may use it. And as you can see, this one is a lot blurrier. So it was very hard to hand because the flower was moving in the wind. I didn't have it on a tripod. 2 is that it's because you're so close in, the ant's little movements of his feet and his feelers and stuff like that were getting blurry. So this gives you an idea. You're really in close. So you want to, if you can, use this for stationary objects, maybe food photography, or if you're taking pictures of rocks or anything that is stationary. If you're taking insects, you're almost better off taking and using the 20 millimeter extension tube and then cropping it to where you want it. It'll be a little bit easier to get a clean, clear picture. So hopefully this gives you an idea of some of the different things that you can use. I didn't want to go too in depth. I'm going to have another video that's going to go through reviews on each of the different parts of the lenses for these different things, for the reviews on them. But other than that, hopefully you liked the video. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Post a comment in here. Make sure you like my video and you subscribe to my videos. I'm going to be doing a lot more of these, especially since, just like everyone else, I'm stuck at home. So if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.